This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Wayne.
Wayne, alcoholic. That I identify myself as an alcoholic, like all of you identified yourselves as alcoholics. And is it Nikki?
Correct.
I want what Nikki has. Nikki had the honesty. She said she wasn't sure. She was fighting with it. And an amazing thing happens in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, that out of our shared limits and our shared vulnerability, and the fact that you don't have nothing on me, I'm as crazy as you are, that she shared in that. She shared in the wholeness of our limitations. And out of that wholeness of our limitations arises our healing. We can change. That was terrific. Saying I'm an alcoholic, identifying myself as an alcoholic, is one of the first steps in breaking down denial. Most alcoholics never get there. To admit I'm alcoholic. But I didn't get here out of virtue, and I didn't get here on a quest for a spiritual life, or help my career, meet girls, help my business. That ain't how I got here. Here, to the Marina Center. I got here because there was no place else would have me. And I had another crisis in my life, another drama, terrible events. And I'd been around a little bit, and I heard people in AA talking about hitting bottom. And another crisis happened, and I said, oh, this must be what they talk about in AA, hitting bottom. Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, they describe it as. See, I used to hit those bottoms all the time. There'd be these terrible dramas. And, like Nietzsche, I used to think that they made me hard, made me street, made me tough. That's real life. Except what doesn't destroy me makes me stronger. I didn't get any stronger. I got diminished every time. I had less self-esteem, less self-respect. I slipped down lower and lower. I am, like my sponsor before me, a lower companion. I got here because something's wrong with me. I thought it might have something to do with drinking. Or shooting dope, taking pills. Might have something to do with that. They always seem to be involved at those terrible moments. And I wanted to get better bad than anything I ever wanted in my life. I got here late. I was 50 when I got here. I was out there for a long time. I'll be 60 this year. And I went into a hospital. I went into the Daniel Freeman, the Exodus program, and they told me, well, you better get a God in your life. You better get a power greater than you. You can't get better. And I was a non-believer. But they told me if I was willing, just take a look at it, I could make some progress. So I'd ask everybody that came through there what was their idea of a higher power, what was their idea of God. And a sober nun came through, and she talked to us. And I asked her, and she said, well, her idea of God was it was a spirit that worked between people. So I said, good enough for me. I'll borrow that. I'll take that one. You know, it had nothing to do with the God of Abraham. Had nothing to do with the first century. Had nothing to do with religious dogma. It was a spirit that worked. I liked it. It was metaphorical. It was poetic. And I liked it. So I said, okay, I got that now. They said, go to 90 and 90. I did that. They said, go to sober living. I went to sober living. I came here to the Marina Center. They said, get a commitment. I got a commitment. I was the cookie man at this meeting for a year. Provided the cookies. Said, get a sponsor. I got a sponsor. I did everything anyone told me to do. I was willing to go to any lengths. I was not complying. I did it wholeheartedly. I wanted to get better. I'd come here to the Marina Center and I'd hear the speakers. Somebody mentioned they had great speakers here. I think you did. Yeah. And I loved them. You know, I'd come here and I'd hear these terrible tales of debauchery and misery. I said, this is great. This was better than the movies because this was real, nonfiction. You know, we hear the truth so rarely in our discourse out in the world. You know, what we hear is a lot of spin and a lot of obfuscation, a lot of BS. But in AA, the people talk from the podium, they sound like they were telling me the truth because they did things like I did. I really liked them, you know, and I'd come back and I'd hear more and more stories, these stories. And they would talk for, 35 minutes about all this. That it would start with, well, I had my first drink when I was 8 years old, and I knew I was alcoholic, and then for 30 or 40 minutes you'd hear the story of all this, we call it a drunkalogue. And then at the last 5 minutes, he'd say, but now I got the steps in my life, I got a God in my life, I got a great life, thanks for letting me share. And I'd be like, could we back up to the part at the end of the bad life to the beginning of the good life and unpack that? How did you make that? What happened right in there, you know? Where did the good life come from? See, they keep talking about the message of recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a message of recovery here. But nobody would tell me the message. I never heard the message. What I heard was car crashes and barroom fights and divorces and infidelities and business disasters and crime and punishment. And I am an expert on all those things. I have done them all. They weren't telling me anything new. So right now, I'm going to tell you the message of recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. The message is that I can change by building a new character, by a method in 12 steps, with a power that is not me, for a good life. That's it. I can change. I came here because I got to change. And the message is, I can change. I can build a new character by a method in 12 steps and a power that's not me for a good life. I'm happy to be here tonight, and I'm happy you're all here tonight. I'm glad to see Alcoholics Anonymous thriving. This is a great thing we're a part of, this thing of ours, where modernity meets a solution, or that disconnectedness, you know. I felt disconnected all my life, and I got connected in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was looking for transcendence in a vodka bottle, and I found it there. Bill Wilson said there's 2 treatments for alcoholism. One is alcohol. Unfortunately, it has side effects. So I come to the meetings, I did everything everyone said, and at a certain point I went to my sponsor and I said, is this what it is? Is this it? You know, I don't drink now. Is that it? That's the end of the story now? You know, we talk about these steps and that's all there is to it? And he said, no, that ain't all there is to it. If that was all there was to it, he wouldn't have stayed. And he just died with over 30 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. And he had a great death. He had an AA death. He was an AA man. So I had to find out what the hell is going on in Alcoholics Anonymous. What the hell are we doing here? What's the point of all this? How does this thing work? What's the reason to come to meetings? What's the reason behind it? I have to go deeper. And I started asking around. People I'd see seemed like they knew something about AA. I'd go ask them questions. I'd take them to lunch, and then I'd ask them questions. Because I have to find out what's wrong with me. That's the first thing I learned. I have to be able to identify alcoholism in me back then, and I have to be able to identify it today, now, in my life now, with time in Alcoholics Anonymous. What's wrong with me now? What is this thing called alcoholism? More than just a word that we throw around at meetings. Oh, it's stinking thinking. Oh, don't worry about it. You got it, kid. Just keep coming back. You know, I'm going to apologize in front because I may say some heretical things. And I don't say these things to be deliberately provocative. But I'm going to take a hard look at this, what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous, the point of this. See, if I don't know anything about what's wrong with me, if I don't know anything about alcoholism, then steps and sponsors and meetings are worthless. Literature is worthless. It's all worthless if I don't know what I'm up against. If I take my car to the mechanic and he doesn't know anything about compression or fuel flow, and I say, well, the motor's making a clunkety-clunkety noise, he can't fix it. He's got to know something about motors to fix my car. It's the same thing with me. I have to know something about what's wrong with me. And I have to be able to describe it, and I have to be able to describe it accurately. Because the disease functions below the level of my consciousness. I could never understand why I would decide I'm not going to drink today, and at 6 o'clock I changed my mind. And I did it 10,000 times. I'm not going to shoot dope today, and I would change my mind. And I'd start to doubt, you know, am I crazy? And I am crazy. Alcoholism is identified by the AMA as a mental disorder. It's easy to say I drink too much. It's a little harder to say I'm in fact mentally ill. But I am. People that have soundness of mind don't do the kinds of things I do. I have to be able to describe it. And this is the way this works. This is the way my mind works, and I suspect this is the way most people's minds work. A parent and a child, a little boy, the parent says, oh, you see this here? This is brown. He's trying to teach him colors. He says, this is brown. The kid says, brown. He's imitating the sound of the word. He has no idea what the word, no connection. He's never heard the word before. He's a child. He's an infant. But he's learning words. He says, brown. So he's imitating brown. Then later on, Dad says, see that? That's brown too. And he says, brown. Then he looks at the shirt and he says, brown. And Dad says, no, 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 that's not brown. This is brown. Now, he started off imitating the word. Now he's starting to get a sense of this color, that color, as being brown. He starts to become conscious of the color brown. Before he was unconscious of color, now he's conscious of color. What we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is we come here and we start imitating. We learn a vocabulary, we learn words, and they're just words as we start off. And then pretty soon we start to find out these words represent principles, truths, principles that are meant to be applied. And then we start learning what the application is. Then we start doing that. And when we start doing that, when I start using a principle in my life, not talking about a principle at an AA meeting, but using it out there in my life, I start to change. I start to build this new character. So one of these guys that seemed to know something about AA said, he was talking to another guy, and he said, well, yeah, so-and-so in the Harry Tebow said, in the Tebow papers, and Dr. Tebow. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you talking about, Dr. Tebow? He said, well, he's a psychiatrist. He wrote some papers, but you can't read them. They're too hard. See, people tell me I'm smart. I actually don't believe that anymore, but they used to say those kinds of things. And so I said, well, let me get a hold of these Dr. Tebow papers. And I went on the internet and I downloaded them and I started to read them and I went, oh, man, hurts my head. I take a look at it and I said, you know, this is terrific stuff. I'm going to get to this later. Oh, this is great stuff. One of these days, if I get some sponsees, I'm going to use this stuff on them. Yeah, because I'll look really smart then. Couldn't read them. The disease of alcoholism itself wouldn't allow me to penetrate what Dr. Tebow was talking about. I couldn't read to good purpose. I couldn't read as if it was for my life. I read as if, you know, I'm reading a novel or something, or a crime fiction book or magazine or something. I had to learn how to read all over again, to read in Alcoholics Anonymous, to read the literature for my life. Take it out of the plural and put it in the singular. You know, we come here and we meet collectively. We are a fellowship, but it's an individual application. I have to do this stuff for me because my life is important to me today. I came here because I have to change. You can't give that to me. I can't give it to you. I wish I could sell it, but I can't. It don't work that way. You can't buy it. So I got some other guys together, and I formed a little group, and we started to read Tebow's work together. And I'll just tell you who Tebow is. Alcoholics Anonymous, principles of Alcoholics Anonymous as they're known today were borrowed from religion. Evangelical pietism, and from medicine, from psychiatry. And Dr. Tebow is one of our friends in medicine. And Dr. Tebow was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous by proxy. He wasn't an alkie, served on our commission. He carried the message of AA to the AMA. He carried it to the American Psychiatric Association. He was Bill Wilson's psychiatrist. And he was AA's psychiatrist. And Dr. Tebow's been kicked to the curb in AA. People don't know about him, never heard of him. You can look him up in AA Comes of Age. And I'm his champion. I'm bringing Tebow back. We need Tebow. Tebow wrote a series of papers. And the one that's most interesting to me, that helped me the most, was on the ego factors in the treatment of alcoholism. Dr. Tebow studied us. He studied the way we act, the way we think, the way we talk, how we get in trouble over and over again. And he came up with 4 factors. If you be alcoholic, if you be an addict, or if you just be a regular old neurotic. You know, all neurotics aren't alcoholic. but all alcoholics are neurotic. And I study these things, and I have to look inward. I have to look inside me to identify what's wrong with me. Is that me? So he talks about defiance as an ego factor. Am I defiant? Well, let's see. I hate cops. I hate priests. I hate politicians. I hate parents. I hate teachers. I hate parole officers. I hate clerks in banks. I hate post people. I hate waiters in restaurants. I hate librarians. I hate you. I hate everybody. Because you bother me. You don't do it right. My wife bothers me. She doesn't do it right. People I work with bother me. They don't do it right. Am I defiant? I identify with the outsider. I identify with the gangster and the mass murderer and the beatnik poets. Charles Bukowski's My God, William Burroughs, Uncle Bill, Byron, Hemingway. These are my heroes. Drunkards. People that don't fit into society. Those are my heroes. Those are the people I love. You know, culturally, avant-garde jazz musicians. You know, I love Sun Ra. It's not for everybody. I'm an outsider. You know, I'm like the character, Marlon Brando character in The Wild One, you know, where the girl from the town comes up and she looks at his jacket and says, "What's that stand for?" And he says, "Black Rebel Motorcycle Club." She says, "Well, what are you rebelling against, Johnny?" And he said, "What do you got?" That's me. I'm against it, whatever it is. I'm anti-war. But I'm a member of a radical political group that blows up buildings. I'm anti-peace. I'm anti-everything. Am I defiant? I have to look inside for me. Thibault talks about impatience, another ego factor. Am I impatient? I can't wait for the thing to happen down the line. When the thing happens, when she comes or the check shows up or the vacation or the gig or whatever it is, when that thing comes, then I'm going to be in full effect. I'll have it going on. And then the thing comes and I miss it. I'm not even present for my own life. I'm impatient for the next thing. It's a state of being. I do it in traffic every morning. I drive over the hill on Laurel Canyon. If I just get around this guy, just get around this guy. Am I impatient? You know, I'm in the supermarket, you know. The line ain't going fast enough for me. I'm counting the items in the 10-item or less basket, the woman in front of me. She's got 12 items. She bothers me. See, this is what I'm starting to get a sense of what's wrong with me. I can't live in the world. Everything upsets me. I have a judgmental mind. I'm always looking for a problem. Thibault talks about omnipotence. Omnipotent. And this speaks right to the heart of Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step recovery program and fellowship. I am not God. Not God. This is a not God program. I don't debate. Is there a God? Isn't there a God? I've done a great deal of reading, a great deal of research. I'm really interested in how we believe and why we believe and what we believe and how did we get to the point where we believe the things we believe. But none of that matters in Alcoholics Anonymous. What matters is I'm not God. See, I want to play God. I want to control stuff. I want to run people. I think I have all power. I think I have the power to change my behavior, and I never could. I look at my own track record. I look at my own history, and I could never change my behavior. But I think so anyway. Omnipotence. And the final ego factor that Thibault talks about is grandiosity. Am I grandiose? Well, let me look inside and see. Since I'm a boy, my plan has been to be internationally famous, worldwide, because I'm that good. Because my work is godlike. And everybody else that does the kind of work I do, they're second best. And this is how I live in the world. And this is why things upset me. I work real hard sometimes to be on a stage in front of 1,000 people and demand that they love me. This is not right. This is not a healthy mind. Average people would be horrified to stand in front of 1,000 people and spill their guts. This grandiosity, you know, it's also, you know, we all know that people we call them, you know, ego tripping. You know, they're hard chargers. But there's another side to that grandiosity, that hard charger. That's the depression underneath, the depressive. Oh, things don't work out for me. I got bad luck. It's pride in reverse. And it comes from that same ego. That ego, that part of my mind that developed where my instincts are. My instinct, my social instinct, my security instinct, my sexual instinct. But as an alcoholic, I cross an invisible line and I go too far with them. I push everything too far. I need more of everything. I never used to understand why in my line of work sometimes people will write about the things I do in magazines and they would sometimes they'd say, well, you know, Wayne sucks. And I could never understand. It would burn me up. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't think straight. I would just spin around on it. I couldn't understand it. You know, I would drink. It was the only thing I could do to get relief. I drink because I can't stand the world. I can't get along. I can't live in the world. I can't live in my own skin. That's why I drink. It helps me. It gives me relief. But now I'm sober. I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't drink anymore. I need some other source of relief, and that relief is in the application of the recovery program to treat this alcoholism, this mental disorder. Dr. Silkworth described this disease as twofold, as a physical allergy. I can treat that 100% by not drinking. Don't put it in my body, I'm good. But the other part of this allergy is a mental obsession. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, many people think it's an obsession for drugs and alcohol. It's not. It's an obsession for any subject I attach my mind to. Anything, I will obsess on it. I used to think it was thinking. Oh, I'm thinking about my career. Oh, I'm thinking about sex. Oh, that's not thinking, that's obsessing. It's a circular thinking process. It goes around and around. I think the same thoughts over and over and over and over again. I go to bed at night, it's going around and around. I go to sleep, I wake up, it's still going around and around and around and around. That's obsessing. That's not thinking. Thinking is a linear process, like balancing a checkbook. So at least I'm scratching the surface for me. I'm looking inside me to say, this is alcoholism, untreated alcoholism, drunk or sober. I take the alcohol out of the picture, none of this stuff changes. I just don't drink. In fact, I'm worse. I'm worse sober because I don't get a break anymore. I don't get relief. And if I don't change, then all the people I hurt over the course of my drinking career, I'm going to go back and hurt them all again. And I can really hurt them now because my mind isn't fogged up now. I'm not hungover now. Now I can hurt you with a look or not a look, a comment, no comment. The very first step of the recovery program, I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. You know, I'll never be able to shoot heroin like regular people. I know this in my heart, in my soul. Never be able to drink water glasses full of whiskey like regular people. My life is unmanageable. By me, on the power of Wayne, on the power of self, it will remain unmanageable. It will continue. It's a progressive disease. It will get worse. I don't know if you know many people that have been around AA for long periods of time that are dry but not sober, that are irritable and discontented and opinionated and harsh and rude. I know lots of them. That's not the message of recovery. I look at it like dry is like a dry leaf. You know, you put any pressure on it, it crumbles. I look at sobriety as supple, like a green leaf. You can fold it and it opens back up. It can bend. It yields and overcomes. Glass in hand, I warp my mind. That's describing what's wrong with me. I have a warped mind. You know, when lumber gets warped, you can never straighten it out. When a record gets warped, you can never play it again. That's my mind. That's what the literature in AA tells me. Based on the experience of millions before me, my mind is warped. You know, we only talk about substances in the first half of the first step. From there on, in all the rest of the 11 and a half steps, we're only talking about character building and spiritual values. That character building and spiritual values have to come first. I have to build a new character. I do that by the application of principles in the steps, not working steps with my sponsor. I never did understand what that meant. It sounded like a homework assignment to me. That's not what we're doing here. You know, AA, some people may have white light spiritual experiences. I didn't. I think what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is fundamentally an educational experience. It's an educational process. The steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, expel the obsession to drink and allow the sufferer to become happy and usefully whole. That's what I'm looking for, happy and usefully whole, happy, joyous, and free, free of me, free of the old character that brought me to the Marina Center, the guy that can't get along in the world. I want to be free of him. I have seen the enemy. It's me. It's not the police and the priests and you and the wife and everybody else. It's me. It's my distorted mind. It's my warped mind. You know, I see a guy walking down the street. I don't see a guy walking down the street. I see a guy I don't like walking down the street. You know, maybe I'm afraid of him. Maybe it's an old racist idea. Maybe it's a homophobic idea. Who knows where these things come from? I have a great opinion about it, and I didn't think that through. It's an unreasoned distortion of perception. I don't even know this guy. So principles, the principle in that first step, that principle of self-honesty. You know, honesty by itself is a great principle. You know, don't steal. That's pretty good. But self-honesty is more important. It's important that I don't lie to you, but it's more important that I don't lie to me. That's where that wholeness of our limitations comes from, that we're all in this together, that we're honest with each other, that we can be vulnerable with each other. And step two, if I have that stuff, self-honesty in my life, if I know my mind is warped, that I am alcoholic, if I had to stay in step one, I'd blow my brains out. Fortunately, we have lots more steps. I'm rocketed into step two. I'm presented with new principles. The open mind is the first one. And I thought I had an open mind. I said, well, I have leftist political ideas, and I have gay friends, and I believe in UFOs. That's an open mind. That's not an open mind. An open mind, those are preconceived ideas. An open mind is I can come to the meeting, and somebody up here can be talking, and I just let it lay on my mind. I don't judge them. I don't have an opinion about it. Just let it lay there. Just let it come in my ear and just let it lay there. And if what I heard was true, that'll be revealed to me. and if what I heard was a lie, that will be revealed to me. But the good news is I don't have to get bent out of shape. I don't have to get tangled up having an opinion about it. It's an interesting self-discipline for me. I have to do this for myself. And then I started trying it out there. You know, I'd go to a lunch meeting and I'd try to actually not know what the guy was going to say before he said it. I'm already figuring out what my response is, and he's not finishing the sentence he's saying. I'm not even hearing what he's saying. I found when I use the principle of an open mind at a meeting, people tell me everything. They tell me more than I even wanted to know. It's terrific. And quitting the debating society. That's the other big principle in step 2. You know, it's important that I don't argue with you. And I used to love to argue. And I'd argue for or against anything. I'd argue either side. If you picked a side, I'd pick the other side. Because I just like to argue. But they told me, quit the debating society. Quit it. That's what they said. Quit it. So I quit it. So I don't argue with people now, but it's more important that I don't debate with myself. That's the trouble. See, I've got this self-talking mind, and I pick a position on something, or I decide I like, well, that guy had a good idea, I'm going to go with his idea. And then somebody else over there says something different. I say, well, gee, his idea sounds pretty good. Maybe I'll go, I like his idea, but I'm going to go to this restaurant, you know. I like the food over there. And then I get there and I say, I should have gone to the other restaurant. The food was, you know, I order something, my wife orders something else, hers looks better. I'm debating. I'm debating everything. This is what bothers me. My thought life is unmanageable. I have unmanageable thought life. And everything I do in my life are sequels to my thoughts. All the things I do out in the world, they all start up here. That's where alcoholism is centered, in my mind rather than my body. Dave, what'd you say, 5-2? Yeah. I have to watch my thoughts. It's an interesting process, but it's part of the recovery program. I watch my thoughts because my thoughts can become words. I watch my words because my words can become actions. I watch my actions because my actions can become habits. And I watch my habits because my habits become character. And I watch my character because character is my destiny. Thanks for letting me share.